Hi, I'm Ashley Cooley, a birth, baby, and sleep specialist and mom of 3. There's so much information out there, right? This show is dedicated to helping you clear out the noise so you can figure out what will work best for your baby and your family. If you're looking to learn more about your baby, gain more confidence in your parenting, and get as much sleep as you can through it all, you've come to the right place. Bringing up baby is about to get a little easier. May is Maternal Mental Health Month, and I want to introduce you to somebody who's doing a lot of great work in this avenue. Madeleine Stobbe is a registered psychologist located in Halifax, Nova Scotia, but she offers individual therapy and services to residents of the Atlantic provinces. She provides specialized treatment for perinatal mental health issues, including depression and anxiety during pregnancy and postpartum. These are also known as perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. She also works with individuals having issues related to infertility, perinatal grief and loss, and reproductive trauma. Madeleine's website is actually great as well. She's got some fantastic resources that we do talk about a little bit in our show, and books on from pregnancy to the perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, parenting, couples. So her top picks for these resources. So wonderful. We're definitely going to link to those in the show notes. But I would love for you to get to know Madeleine a little bit and the work that she does. But more importantly, we're having a conversation around, what the difference is between maybe going through a hard time and experiencing a mental health issue. But please know that throughout this conversation, I bring up some of my own things and we talk about a little bit about where medication or things like that might come into play. A diagnosis. This is not what we're trying to put out there. Not everyone needs a diagnosis. Not everyone needs medication, but I think everybody needs to talk more. So that's why we're talking, so that we can normalize reaching out for help, having these discussions. Whether medication or diagnoses are involved or not is not really the point. We need to talk more. And so hopefully you'll find that this episode will help you to talk more. Have a listen. Hi, Madeleine. Nice to see you. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm really excited that we're going to have this conversation around seeking help and what that could look like. But first, I wondered if you could share with us a little bit about yourself. I know you're a busy mom, and if you want to share a bit about yourself and what you do.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so thankful to be here. It's great to be here chatting with you. So I'm a psychologist who specializes in perinatal mental health. I work in private practice out of Halifax. I've been in private practice for about 10 years now and specializing in perinatal mental health for 6. And when I say perinatal mental health, that can mean anything from postpartum depression, anxiety during pregnancy. It can be anything that happens during conception or after conception, so during pregnancy and in the year following birth. I also work with a lot of women who are struggling with fertility issues, and the challenges that go along with that. That would be sort of all within the wheelhouse. So reproductive trauma, long stays in the NICU, complex fetal diagnoses, sort of anything, in that, under that umbrella. And then personally, I'm a mom of 2 young kiddos. They're 6 and 8, turning 7 and 9 next month. I'm a little ways out from the baby days, but I remember them very well. So, and I love helping new parents and connecting with individuals like you, people in the community who are also, helping support new parents.
Yeah. And, I'm not sure your experience, but for myself, because I wasn't working in this field either before I had kids. But it was after having kids and after having experiences and just where my training did lie, I thought, well, hey, there needs to be more here. And so I'm hearing like you've been in private practice for some time, really specializing in the perinatal mental health. So was it a similar thing for you? Like, were you finding that in stories and people that you're meeting, maybe yourself, that there needs to be more in this avenue?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I found that, myself, I struggled, after my daughter was born, with feeding, with just I don't think I don't think anyone is fully prepared for when, you're leaving the hospital and bringing baby home, and then you get home and it's sort of like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? And not only sort of the physical healing, but, everything that comes along with that. And then again, during sort of, both my maternity leaves, connecting with a lot of mothers, hearing, and parents, and hearing sort of similar stories of people struggling. There's the reproductive mental health team at the IWK, which does a phenomenal job, but there's just so much need, and people that unfortunately, are unable to access their services. So yeah, for me, it was sort of seeing, how many people are struggling. And I think, your point too of normalizing it, because I think, for so long, and especially like the new parents, you go on, and for so long it was, you go on Instagram or social media and you see all these lovely pictures of, sleeping babies, and someone has a hot drink and they've made a pie. And then you're just thinking, how, where, so I think our culture and society, unfortunately, I don't think does a very good job of accurately painting a picture of just the spectrum of experiences that people have when they're new parents. I think there is a lot more talk now. I know this is, Perinatal Mental Health Month or Maternal Mental Health Month right now. So there's a lot of talking about it, trying to normalize getting help, even normalizing talking about the struggles, even if you don't, necessarily need to seek out professional help. It's just, giving people the ability to talk about their experience without the shame that a lot of people feel.
Yes, I love that you brought that up, because it isn't just about like we all need to be diagnosed with something. That's not it at all. But I mean, if that is what happens and treatment is sought because of that, that's great. But it's really just about if we can normalize this and talk about it more, then maybe we won't all be struggling alone behind closed doors. I can see where this conversation is going already, but I would really love for you to share with us, maybe, of course, while maintaining confidentiality, I know you would, can you share with us some of the common ailments or issues that parents or maybe moms or who you're seeing, what they're coming to you with in the perinatal period, whether pregnancy or postpartum?
Right. Yeah. So that would probably take like an episode
in itself,
each of the
right?
topics.
Yeah.
Just because, and I mean, again, there's so much, there's so much overlap, but there's so much that is so, that is a topic that, deserves its own airtime. So typically people, coming to therapy, sometimes it's partners reaching out to me, asking about services because the person might not feel comfortable coming. So I always share information and resources for them to look for help. Often, so it could be anything from, someone struggling with low mood, having difficulty like getting out of bed each day. It can be anxiety. So, we all have anxiety, but it might be to the levels where, the person can't stop worrying about baby's safety, or is now starting to change their behavior because they're so worried about safety issues.
Impacting their life in a bigger way than
absolutely. Right. And so someone who's gone through, a traumatic birth experience, and everyone, I hear this a lot with people who have had I know it's a podcast, so I won't be able to see my air quotes, but like a positive outcome where baby's okay and mom's okay, but they're still really struggling with, what happened during their labor and delivery. People who are currently in the NICU or coming out of the NICU, that can often be a traumatic, or stressful experience for a lot of new parents. Postpartum rage is another one that often takes a lot of people by surprise. I've never struggled with anger. I've never had these feelings before. And suddenly I'm just like, reaching this limit and feeling these feelings that are so extreme. And then it can be things like, people just sort of struggling or wanting someone to talk to, or not having that support, or someone that they can talk to about mental health concerns or struggles in their relationship. So, I mean, in a perfect world, everyone would have easy access to mental health services. Because I think to your point earlier is that, you don't necessarily need a diagnosis of anything, to seek out mental health treatment. because I think most people could benefit from some of that support. And I think even just to that point of normalizing it, to talk about it. So really it's sort of like a whole spectrum, of people come in. I've had clients who come in before they're even having baby, they're feeling anxious about getting pregnant or what that experience will be like. I have some people coming like a year after saying, I think this is what happened. And I'm still, really stuck with my birth experience. And it's like 4 years later, so again, it's, I guess the bottom line is like, there's no right or wrong time to come in for therapy, or right or wrong issue. I think, it looks so different for everyone.
Yeah.
And, Postpartum Support International, the website has great resources, great information. So if anyone is, kind of questioning it or wants to get more information, that's always the first place I send people, because they have so much information, and support groups. So the coordinators like yourself, they've got practitioners that are associated. So there's just, it's a great place to start if people are sort of wondering, about what that might look like.
Absolutely. Of course, I agree. We're both part of the PSI community, and they do have a lot of great resources. I'd love to piggyback a bit on what you're saying, because you gave us a great kind of synopsis. Like, really, there's obviously a wide range of issues or things that someone might seek out help for. How can someone tell the difference between, though, like going through this, I'll use the air quotes, season of life, or something a little bit more serious like a mental health issue? And the reason I bring this up, because I found I have 3 kids. A couple of them are older, around the same ages as yours, and a younger one as well. But I found over the years, from my own personal experience, and again, what I hear from lots of families that I work with over the years, is that, if we were to open up to someone, if someone, how are you? Oh, I'm really tired. I'm so like, this is stress, whatever's going on, right? If they actually do open up, and sometimes we get well, but you're a parent, like, this is how it is. Like, you have young kids. Of course you feel that way. You're just having a moment, and I'm not saying people brush it off. There's lots of lovely, caring people in people's lives, I hope, that are coming from a good place. But I guess that kind of thing, that kind of thing over the years has kind of made me feel like, oh, this is just something that I'm going to get over. This is just something that, we all go through. I asked for this. Here's my air quotes again, like that kind of thing. But for me, it took too long. I would say it took too long for me to get to that place where I was like, oh, I could probably use a little extra help. What I'm currently doing maybe was working before, but it's not now. And that separation for me, as someone who's, I guess, in the business or knows a lot about mental health, that was even kind of a gray area. Anyway, all that being said, is there any way that someone could try to figure out, okay, like, is this just a season of life? Am I just having kind of a rough week or what have you? Or is this something a little bit more serious?
Right. Absolutely. And I think our culture loves to say the words, how are you? And we never want to hear the answer.
It's like nice weather. Like, it's just another.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And so I think it's we all become, so conditioned to that. Like, how are you? Good. And I think, especially for new parents, what I hear too is that, there can be so much focus on baby. So a lot of those questions are, how is baby doing? And a lot of people feel sort of, left out, or like they don't have a voice in those situations. But I think, what I would say, again, with prefacing it with, I think everybody should be able to access mental health support, is, typically, sort of those red flags or things to, notice would be that, so whatever the symptoms, whether it's low mood, whether it's anxiety, postpartum rage, is, and this is not sort of talking about maybe more extreme symptoms like, sort of the psychosis or, issues with safety, but if it's sort of the distress is persistent. So let's say, you're struggling with depression. So again, the baby blues is quite common. There's sort of, the cycle of sort of low mood things coming out, but when it's persistent. So when it's, it's day after day. There's sort of like feelings of hopelessness of like, this is never going to feel better. Now it starts impacting ability to care for baby. Maybe it's, difficulties connecting with your partner. Now it's affecting maybe your sleep or your ability to feed yourself, or maybe you have no appetite or overeating. It would be similar with anxiety or any of those symptoms where it becomes sort of this persistent issue and it's really impacting your day-to-day life. And a lot of people will come to when, they've been trying to do things. So I've been trying to, get sleep. I've been trying to eat. I've been trying to talk to people, and it's just not working. I feel like I just can't get ahead of it. That would be sort of, a time when I think people, that would be really important to, again, start with talking to your family doctor, because that's, often a good place to start. PSI, the Postpartum Support International, is another great one. And then just doing a search, for private practitioners in your area, such as myself. You can just, search postpartum depression therapist, Halifax, and find information too.
Yeah. That scenario that you gave, that was completely me. I was feeling like I deal with anxiety. I have anxiety and deal with it. We all deal with it. But I've kind of always been a bit of an anxious person, and it didn't really occur to me that I was maybe a little bit more than the average anxious person until after having kids, and just years later. And then even then it was still like, okay, well, I know what I need to do. I need to get some better sleep. I'm going to make sure I'm eating regularly through the day, because sometimes that doesn't happen, and do the things that we're supposed to do. All the things that people tell you to do, meditate, all the things, right? But then for me, and this is just my experience, but there came a point, and I just happened to be listening to a podcast at the time and they were talking about that it was like, you know what? It is kind of impacting my life now. Like it took a minute to really reflect, because you get so caught up in the day to day. And sometimes, hey, it could be persistent, but you could still have a happy moment. You could still have a great afternoon. You could still have happy things go on, right? But in the grand scheme of things, when I was really thinking like, okay, it is kind of impacting my ability to take care of myself, or those kinds of things. So again, just for me, on that personal note, that's when I was realizing, okay, we need to step it up a notch. We need to go to get some other kind of help to help with this.
Right.
Because sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say absolutely. Because I think like oftentimes with clients, when I talk about anxiety is, because a lot of people have like functional anxiety where I'll have to use like the analogy of like a gauge, like the odometer in your car, where it's like there's a healthy range. So, anxiety is an important emotion for us to have. It, helps to motivate action. So like the example of like, if the baby gate's open and your baby's crawling to the baby gate, if you didn't have anxiety in that situation, like that would be problematic. So it's normal and natural, just like, or studying for a test is another one, like, feeling that anxiety beforehand to sort of prepare, and so that's sort of within this healthy range versus like when the gauge is broken and it's just on all the time. It's like that persistent, like restlessness or energy where it's just like, you can't bring it down. So you're doing, like you're saying, I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be doing. And at the end of the day, your anxious brain kicks in. It's like, but have you thought about all these other things you didn't do, or terrible things that can have,
intrusive thoughts, those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. And so it can be very, and I think, again, there's also, another thing working against new parents is there's this like, especially working parents, is there's this like, almost like the, like a successful parent is someone who's really busy. I've got, this job and I'm running to this mom and baby class. And like, it's almost like, feeds into this expectation that we should just be like running full steam ahead, having so much on the go, which is like, someone who's struggling with anxiety, is it's going to be so overwhelming. And again, it's not an accurate picture for a lot of people who are healthy. So I think, I mean, again, it can be so tricky to know when to get help. Like, cause I think, there is a lot that's, healthy anxiety, but then it's really tricky to navigate. But I think that point of like when it becomes impacting your function day to day, when it's really difficult to turn off, when it's just like your mind is constantly going, or that tension, a lot of people sort of feel it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's such an interesting, I would get those comments, I would get comments of, I have 3 kids and I run my own business. So I'm a boss in a lot of ways, in the good sense of the word, right? However, people will come up to me, might be see me with all the kids at the grocery store. Like, how do you do it? When people ask me, how do I do it? Now I'm at the point where I say, I'm medicated. Like, I needed help with this. I don't think everybody who has 3 kids and their own business needs to be medicated by any stretch, but I'm just saying the fact that like it looks on the outside that we've all got it together, but
absolutely
that we don't necessarily. So I'm the first to say that. As you know, well, we've been talking, but I choose to be so open with this because I've had such a problem in the past of not a problem, but people would say like, how was your day? I'd say like, oh my gosh, today I had to close the door on my kids and lock myself in a room for a minute while they were crying on the other side because I had to get my shit together for a second. And I had a friend be like, oh my God, thank you for saying that. Because we always say, how are you? Oh, good. Everybody's great. Yeah, everybody's healthy, right? Life is good. I shouldn't complain. Yes, you can totally complain. You have every right to complain. This stuff is hard. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. And I think that's like that power of the normalizing what it looks like. Because I think there's this, I mean, again, if you use social media, which is like a blessing and a curse, because I think there's so much, so much amazing things that can happen in like groups like yours, like the perinatal mental health support in Halifax. Because it brings people together, it can normalize. But then the other side of social media is this, it's like, here's a picture of someone, doing something, and there's like this right way, they're doing it the right way. So if I'm struggling, if I'm having to put baby in the crib, walk away and have a big cry in the bathroom because I've just like reached my limit, that like there's something wrong with me, and again, I think there, that is so far from the truth for most parents. Everybody's going to reach that limit, and I love the postpartum support international that this is temporary, and this, I mean, I tell all of my clients this is a temporary chapter of your life, and perinatal mental health is a temporary treatable condition. With help you will be well. And I think that's like, I mean, that is like the catchphrase on every postpartum support web page, is
because
this,
it's like, true. It's very true. Yeah.
Right. And again, I think it's, we're so good at putting that pressure and the expectation, whether it's like self-inflicted, where we're like, oh, well, clearly I'm just a terrible mom because I'm not doing XYZ, or if it's that like sort of societal pressure, like sometimes when you say something, and maybe it gets a different reaction, So again, I think that, the first thing is like, podcasts like this, like just normalizing that experience for so many new parents.
So you mentioned, so we have the Halifax Perinatal Support Network. It's a Facebook group where we actually meet currently virtually once a month. And the last few months that we've been meeting, a few of us in the group have children, and we're talking about kind of the struggle, a particular struggle that we all shared. And then there was someone else in the group who was pregnant for the first time. And we were very well aware of our conversation at the time and saying, oh, so-and-so, like, I hope this isn't scaring you. Like, we love our children. Everything's great, but hey. And she just quickly was like, no, this is why I come to these meetings. I appreciate this. I want to hear this because I know how and where to get all the other information and see all the other stuff. But I want the real stories. And I want to know that if I'm struggling, that this is normal. And so just right there, like, that's exactly why we need to talk about it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's, again, there's so many, it's like a spectrum of parenting experiences. Like you're going to have the amazing moments that you just feel so connected or bonded to your child or baby. You're going to have the other moments that are, maybe more neutral or good, and then you're going to have these moments where you struggle. And I think, again, there's sort of, again, I think it is getting, better now where people are talking and posting about it more, on social media, and there's more news articles, there's more things being written, but I think it's been such a taboo thing to talk about for so long that I think there's still, we obviously still have a ways to go, but I think again, I think it's just so important to normalize, and talk about that, because it is, I think, again, it's like helpful to see like the whole picture for people, and I think in a group like yours, it's important too, because there's, in any group online, there's always going to be the people sort of hanging back or not saying much or just sort of reading the comments, and who might feel incredibly anxious or worried to speak up. So I think even, and again, that's why I think the Postpartum Support International, and they also have free groups online, and why it's so important, because I think there is so much, if just one person can recognize like, okay, I'm not crazy. This doesn't mean I'm a bad mom. This doesn't mean that, that I'm going to feel this way forever, that I'm never going to feel bonded to baby. If there's that hope that people, can get to those moments where, they feel better. And again, that's really, I think, why, conversations like this are important, so that people can, have that hope, that things are going to get better.
Absolutely. So speaking of that hope, you've already mentioned some great resources of places where people could go for that. So if somebody was thinking right now, like, hey, maybe I need to seek out a little extra help, or I'd love to talk more about this, where could they go? What could they do?
Right. Absolutely. So, again, I often recommend connecting, with their primary healthcare provider, whoever that might be, because I think, not everybody, needs or wants medication, but I think it's very important that the doctor, is following you, be aware, so that, and even with clients who, I have some clients who are like, I will never not be on my meds, but I also want therapy. I have clients that are like, I don't want to be on meds. I want to try therapy, and often it's like, medication can be so helpful, just to get people to a place sometimes where therapy can be helpful. Exactly. And other people, it's not something that they need or want. So I think, again, first place is always helpful to just at least inform your doctor. That's assuming also that you have a positive, relationship with your doctor. And so I know sometimes there can be some mental health stigma. There's the free public health program in Nova Scotia is the IWK Reproductive Mental Health Team. Unfortunately, at this point, you need your family physician or your primary care provider to give you a referral. So other people can't refer, it needs to go through there, but that's a free service, for people who are residing in Nova Scotia. So the other option would be reaching out to the PSI coordinator like yourself, who can connect you, with specialists in your area.
And by the way, I'll just say, people are connecting with PSI themselves. So like you had mentioned, going to Postpartum Support International, give them a Google. I'm going to link to it in the show notes. But they have, like you're saying, so many great resources, information groups, virtual groups that you can attend. Yes, even if you're in Nova Scotia. And they would refer. So if somebody from Nova Scotia or this general area was calling them and looking for support, is often when they're referred to me, and then we can have those conversations. And I'm not the therapist. That's your job, but I'm around for information, support, resources, and just kind of staying connected, or just even being a listening ear sometimes. So there are people like us out there that can be that support too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, those would be, going through PSI, there's listings on there for every province, every state, if you're in America. And then the other option, again, is just to do a search, in Halifax or wherever you're living. So, you just have to type postpartum depression, therapist Halifax, and there will be some, therapists that pop up. And typically what that might look like, is like during my first session with the client, it's really getting the background information, what they're struggling with. Again, just start planting some of those seeds of hope of that this is temporary, this is treatable, just validating and normalizing. Because again, that might be the first time someone's hearing like, yeah, of course you're stressed. Of course you're angry, just really validating those feelings. And then really for me, it's about a good fit. So I want to make sure that this person feels comfortable, feels safe, because in my opinion, that is the most important thing for someone for successful therapy, is having that connection and having that rapport with your therapist. And then giving them a chance to ask questions, because for a lot of people, this is their first time reaching out for help. It's normal. Most people feel stressed or anxious. They don't know what to expect, so going in, giving them a chance to talk about, what was it like for them? Do they have any questions? And then again, treatment can look different, whether this is like a long-standing, traumatic issue, whether this is just wanting some sort of periodic support, and really I just tailor, our sessions to whatever issue the client's presenting. So there's, some supports for that. And then there's also a handout that I have that just talks about different self-care strategies. So back to sort of when we're talking about, when should people come in, this is something that might be helpful for someone who's maybe not at the point where they want to reach out for mental health support, but it has, just some typical sort of self-care strategies tailored, to new parents, is sort of how I go. And again, most people, there's some, anxiety in reaching out for help, but again, finding someone who specializes in this area, and there's a few of us, in the Halifax area as well, is that sort of our job to help you feel comfortable once you, are able to get in the door, or the virtual door. Virtual
right.
Therapy.
and so all yourself and the other therapists around that are specialized in this perinatal mental health, you're all listed on PSI's website, I think, aren't you?
There's a couple, there's a few of us that are, and then I think there's a few just in the community. And again, it would just be sort of, seeking out, and again, family doctors too sometimes have referrals of clinicians they send people to that they've had good positive experiences with. But another one would be Psychology Today, is often where a lot of clinicians, like therapists, will post advertisements, and you can search by I think it's like perinatal and postpartum mental health. So they have a filter where, again, you can sort of, seek that out as well. So there's lots of options. There's the IWK reproductive mental health, again, is phenomenal, a public health. So it's free. And then there's private practitioners that would be covered under most insurance providers if you have private health insurance.
This has been such a helpful experience. I'm always very humbled by these kinds of conversations because, as I've mentioned, I've gone through my own situations. They can lead you down a path where you're not sure where to turn or where to go, but it's so nice to know that there are people like yourself that really specialize in this, because it is a niche. We're not just talking general anxiety. Well, I mean, yeah, maybe we are general anxiety or depression or whatever, but when it has to do with becoming or being a parent and having young children. And I always say, like, there's nothing like having children and being a mother for myself or a parent to make you look back and look at your own life and reflect on your own stuff. So I think things come up a lot of times for parents and we're just not sure where to go, where to turn. So I love that we got to chat. I love that you shared some great resources and to know that you're out there. So thank you for all that you do. And maybe we should do this again sometime and chat some more, because like you said, there's more topics here that could have their own airtime.
Right. We could chat for hours about all of that. So yeah. And thank you so much for having me today.
Looking for more? Check out birthbabysleep.ca, where you'll find prenatal classes, postpartum and new baby resources, and sleep support during the childhood years. You'll also find me on Facebook and Instagram at birthbabysleep. It would be awesome if you followed us wherever you listen to podcasts, and if you can, leave a review or a rating, which goes a long way for helping others to find us. That's all for now. I'm Ashley Cooley, and we'll see you back here next time.